convincing story that maps onto reality, and that's why the central narrative is falling apart.
Right now in the United States, people should not be walking around with masks.
We must see the central narrative for the fiction that it is. We are Americans.
While elections are sometimes messy, this was a secure election.
The founders began the fight for human liberty and self-governance, and it's up to us to finish the job.
I tell you what, we are in a truth emergency right now.
This is the end game.
All the people that have gone out there against the mainstream media and said, you're going to call us racist, you're going to call us potential Timothy McVeighs, fuck you. War.
Productive. Quite sure he's right. An obsessionally neurotic. Pretty dangerous, in fact.
Do you mean you doubt your powers to convince him?
Worse than that. What I'm afraid of is his power to convince me.
Let us never tolerate outrageous conspiracy theories.
Say it! Say it!
All right, I'll say it.
We're talking about putting a manifestly irresponsible man on national television.
Sweetheart, be reasonable.
And there we are, everybody. Happy New Year. It is Monday, January 6th, 2025, the 1447th day of dystopia. I'm your moderator, Chris Paul. Let's be reasonable. So, when we started last year, the first episode of the year, I said there are a few things that I want to talk about. There are a few things that I want to focus on because I cannot involve myself in the day-to-day political noise. It is too stupid, and it is part of the trick. So last year, I said I wanted to focus on the media landscape, of course, always. Geopolitics, worldwide elections, including our own, of course, the Constitution, and Bitcoin/finance. I probably didn't focus on that part enough, to be honest. I also said, and I think I should say, I think we did that. I think we did a pretty good job of that. And this year, I want to do that even more so, but back away even a little bit further, because I have really been thinking lately that what this ultimately is for and what this ultimately needs to be, if the people are taking back power in the United States of America, then the people have to be prepared to take back power, which means that they need to understand the history, some of the history, at least enough history in a real way to understand the usurpation that this country has suffered for at least 160 years, but probably the entire time. The global regime involvement has been present from the very days of the founding. Okay, that's got to be understood. And that's because the global regime element never goes away. It started before the United States of America started. And it was present in the United States of America when the United States of America was founded. The war is against them. The global banking cartel, the regime, as I often call it, because it encompasses a lot more than just that British Crown banking cartel. And we can talk about it as the party of false decorum. We can talk about it as the evil twin. We can talk about it as all those things. But the regime, the war, supposedly is against them. And if the war is against them, then we're not going to win it by exposing that the Democrats are the bad guys. It's a distraction. Ultimately, it's a distraction. I know that there's morals in those stories. I know that people's lives are affected by them. I know that the government does terrible things and people need to know about it. I understand that. But above that, if we're actually fighting against that regime, the people need to know how to take back power. Otherwise, if and when the people take back power, they're going to get rolled. Rolled. The regime's been doing this for thousands of years. They've been running the color revolution playbook for at least 100 years, probably much longer. They've probably been running that for thousands of years as well. They control media, they control finance, and eventually, among the control of media and finance, they then control nations and armies, or maybe armies prior to nations. They have every level of control. And it seems like that control is beginning to slip away. And so if that's the case, and if the people are going to take back the responsibility for governing themselves at some point, well, then it has to be the case that the people know what to do when they are governing again. Okay? Because what I think people have come to accept by the people governing themselves is that we will be able to choose our rulers the way we've been taught to. It'll just be good in some way. Okay? But the way we have all been raised throughout our lives is within the falsified system, the false reality layer on top of the reality prime layer. Okay? This secret government, this global regime government, the elements of control, rather than the reality prime layer, the base layer that is described in the Constitution. And when those two things combine, that system will tell you, no, I swear we're just the base layer. And that is what it does. Okay. And so if we are removing the false reality layer and the people are going to control the base layer, then the people need to know what the hell they are doing. Okay. And virtually nobody seems to. And I'm not saying that I do. I've just gone down a particular path in a particular way. And I think I'm on the right track. Okay. And if you don't think I am, that's fine. Call me a conspiracy theorist. I don't give a shit. If that is where we're going, then people need to understand their government and they need to understand their history in a real way. And they need to understand what the founding was about. And I should say right now that I really believe that at the top of people's list of content to take in, somewhere in that top portion, maybe at the top, listen to him before you listen to me. Michael Bolden, Path to Liberty from the 10th Amendment Center. Okay. It's really, really important to know that the way the establishment Republicans describe the Constitution and describe how the nation is supposed to be to us, and that's what they do. We have gotten most of our understanding about what our country is from television and from our public school education. And that can't be good enough. And it's not good enough. It's not even close to good enough, because the idea we have of our founders and what they wanted this nation to be is not what this nation is. Okay. We are lied to about that part. And it's really, really important to understand that the founders, people at that time, founders on both sides, because it's important to understand that the founders weren't all agreed that the Constitution was going to just save this union of states. Many of them didn't think that at all. And there's a good argument to be made that the ratification of the Constitution was pushed through in illegitimate ways. Okay. So you have to understand that there was something here before, and there were people trying to preserve liberty prior to the Constitution being quote unquote ratified. So you got to understand that these other ideas were there from the beginning. People think I'm some kind of radical. I'm literally making the case they made. And of course, talking about modern media and the rest of it, geopolitics now and whatever. But this case was being made by founding fathers and people who were around before the founding fathers. All right. There's nothing that I'm doing that is radical. And I think that it's important for everybody to understand that, because we're never going to be able to actually be a government of, by, and for the people if we don't understand anything about what the country's supposed to be, what the actual principles were. We can say that we like one political opinion or another. Abortion, we're pro-life, we're pro-choice. Okay, I get it, right? It's important to have a moral stand on those things. It's also important to understand the constitutional issues around where those sorts of issues should be decided. And I mean, ultimately in a society, people are going to do what they're going to do. So those things have to be decided at a societal level, which means they have to be understood so that you can win arguments. Because the moral argument, I mean, most people, when they understand once they understand what the government is doing and the immoral things the government is doing, and once they can detach their need to support a political party in whatever the political party says about that issue, once that goes away, people can have rational conversations about these things. That's required for the rational conversation. But figuring out the issue, the political issue, is entirely different than understanding the principles of what government is allowed to do by the people and what the people's ability is when it comes to invalidating the things that government is doing against the will of the people. And there are tools in the Constitution for that. But more primarily, in the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson said specifically that when this train of usurpations has, I don't know the quote exactly. I should find it right now and pull it up, but I'm not going to. Okay. When this long train of usurpations, the people have the right and the duty to stop recognizing that government as authoritative. Okay. We can at least start with that. I don't even think violence is necessary in any way, but I think you have to understand what the regime is, what our government actually is, the influence of the regime, the ownership by the regime of that government, before we can get towards solutions. Okay. Because people always ask for solutions, but they're not willing to understand what the problem is. They just say, okay, I get it. Our government's illegitimate. Like, what do you propose? Well, I propose that people understand what exactly it is that means, and the ways that you can contest that within the law and outside of the law. And that does not mean, by the way, to violate the law, although most of our laws are invalid and, if properly challenged, would be shown to be invalid because they're not allowed to do any of this shit, but we'll get to in a few minutes why they do. By outside the law, I mean by simply not complying, okay? And not recognizing the legitimacy. So there are ways to challenge these things inside the system, and it's good that people do. It's fine. I should say it's fine that people do. I think maybe it's not good. I think it's probably a waste of time, but I don't think that their hearts are in the wrong places. Outside of that, though, there are other things we can do, which is talk about what the country actually is, and stop groveling before the state. And what we do is we grovel before the state. And there are a lot of ways that we do that. But pretending that all of their ceremonies and their elections and their little hearings are really, really important is one of the ways we grovel the most. Okay. And that's a tough one for people to get past because they are totally connected in many good ways to the good and the future of the country. And they want to be paying attention to this stuff, and paying attention to it is fine. But people pay attention to it in extraordinarily emotional ways that allow the system to perpetuate itself. You are supporting the legitimacy and strength of the system by getting mad at it and wanting it to do something else. Okay? It's not legitimate. It's not allowed to do anything. It's not even real. And that should be remembered. This is primarily a television show that we are watching. But legitimacy? No, there's no legitimacy. Don't get mad at what the government does. Say, I'm never obeying that, and make it public. Write letters to your congressman. Write letters to your mayors or your county commissioners or whoever, whatever situation you have in your state, parish, whatever in Louisiana, right? Write letters to them. Make it very clear to them that no one is going to abide by whatever policy was just passed by the federal government, and you do not recognize any authority in them to go along with it. I mean, that is exactly what we were told to do. And instead we're like, no, you know, we got to wait 2 more years until the midterm elections, and we're going to have to support everyone the TV says to support the whole time, or else the other party might win. It's the same party. It's a uniparty. It's only a uniparty. There's nothing else other than the uniparty. Okay? Like the Congress and the Senate are not even legitimate. People are like, we need to get a speaker in there so that we can govern. We need to pass a budget. You don't need to do shit. We need to pass Trump's agenda. What is Trump's legislative agenda? I mean, he says occasionally that there are laws we need to pass for this or for that, for whatever. No, there aren't. There aren't. The point of it, big picture, is that Trump already did all these things, but people will come to recognize it this year. That the administrative state is unconstitutional. It's not only that it shouldn't exist, it's that it can't exist. Okay? That's going to be gone. That doesn't need legislation. The courts have already decided these things. The courts didn't need to decide these things, but, you know, in our retardopia, the court does need to decide those things. The people decide those things. At some point, by the way, we might see that the Supreme Court is totally illegitimate. And the Supreme Court is not exactly the greatest thing in the world. Okay. The people decide at all times, I should say, in real time, whether or not something is constitutional. That's the people's job. The people have the ultimate authority all the time. And that authority is delegated to representatives, and those representatives go represent our interests in Congress. Except they don't do that. They market the global regime's agenda to us in a television show that pretends there are two sides. There's one side, there is only the uniparty. Okay? The people have the authority to rescind all of that at any time. Everybody in government has that threat all the time. All the time. There is no legitimate government without the will and consent of the people. It's very, very simple. It's very, very simple. I'm not suggesting a letter writing campaign, although I'm up for it. Maybe that's the thing. I don't know. I'm pretty reserved to wait until after January 20th to see if anything major happens before thinking about what to do, because of course the situation is probably going to change pretty mightily. And it doesn't make sense to suggest doing something knowing that the situation is going to change mightily in 2 weeks. I can wait 2 weeks. I can get that information and then we can talk about it. So I'm not suggesting a letter writing campaign, but it probably would be good if we talked this way about politics rather than gossiping as we do. Oh, I hear Thomas Massey's not going to choose Mike Johnson. Was that happening in real time, playing out in real time? Did they decide right there as the clock is ticking down and each name is being called that who was going to vote for what? No, that's ridiculous. Okay, they all know, and everybody knows they all know. It's a show. And you can see the show. Oh, Andy Biggs. Oh, he's going to wait. He's going to wait. Oh, I can't announce my pick yet. We're going to save it for the end when we have all this power and we get the story. And by the way, could be a white hat story. Could be a white hat story well told. Don't care. It's not the truth. What I care about is the truth. Okay? That's all gossip. It's gossip. It's talking about what you saw on TV. Okay? And we're going to do some of it because it's still a massive part of our society. And maybe one day it won't be. Okay? If it continues like this, I'll eventually just defect for myself and end my connection with screens. But until we get to that point, largely as a society, I hope at least that there's some purpose in doing this. But yeah, I can't pretend I'm going to bother myself with the day-to-day stuff that Twitter influencers are having aneurysms over. The Cybertruck explosion outside of Trump Tower, the amount of time people have spent on that story is mind-blowing to me. And some of those people are my friends. And it's not that I'm trying to insult them. I have expressed my position directly. That is a total waste of time. You know it's an op. There is not one fact about that story that is directly confirmable, except for the fact that Sean Ryan is running an op. That is the only thing that has happened that is real, that has to be real in that situation. I actually called the Trump Hotel and said, hey, can I get a room tonight? They're like, yeah. I go, oh, good. I was just hoping that you guys were back open. I didn't know if you were with that, that event last week. And she said, oh, yeah, we were open the next morning. So the president has a bomb blown up outside his hotel in the car of the leader of Doge, Elon Musk, the overlord of censored Twitter. And the investigation wrapped up in an afternoon, and the hotel was back to normal business the next morning. Mind-blowing, isn't it? But who gives a shit, right? I mean, we keep getting a new fact about the case every 6 hours, and it sort of seems to fit, but it sort of doesn't. We got to track this down. It's absolutely crazy. I can't do it. Okay. I'm not going to do it. And it's funny because we talked about all of this on Devolution Power Hour on Saturday night, and some people in the chat got upset. And they were like, how can you talk about this if you're not looking into it? I expected better from you. I'm disappointed. I'm not looking into it because it's an op. Okay? Because it's fake. Doesn't matter if there are elements that are real. At the very top level, it's fake. Someone staged this event. Someone is forming the public's perception of this event. They are doing it to exploit us. and it's being disseminated by liars. So the only relevant aspect of that in every case is who the liars are and why they're lying. That's it. I don't care at all about what Matthew Livelsberger's girlfriend has to say about him, or what Sean Ryan's guest is exposing about Chinese alien drones. Moronic. Maybe there's some disclosure in there somewhere, and I'm totally open to that being true. And if somebody's chasing that stuff down and has a nice contribution because of it, wonderful. But I could throw out a random sentence and be like, hey, everybody, research this sentence. And by the end of the day, we would have 25 new amazing stories, shit we had never heard, that opens up new dimensions of our world. All right? But that can happen with any random string of words. Any random string of words. It doesn't have to happen with Cybertruck, Elon Musk, Trump Hotel, Matthew Livelsberger, Sean Ryan, Tim Kennedy. By the way, just knowing that all those things are part of the story should show people that I've just received more of this than your average normie out there. Okay? I read the email. It's an op to make the drone op from 2 weeks ago important again. Oh, those are Chinese alien drones? Whoa. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? Stage the drone false flag? Do the operation, or what is it? Operation Bluebeam? Project Bluebeam. Sorry. Is that what they're going to do? Do I need to believe in a gravitonic propulsion so that I'll know what's happening in that op? No, it's an op. Then two. And I will be there like, hey guys, you know that's fake, right? Yep. I'm sorry that they shot a missile next to some military base. I'm sorry that happened. But it's fake. Okay. So yeah, man, I can't chase these things down. In fact, I posted this on Truth Social just before we started because I was responding. Actually, let's go through this whole thing. It's kind of interesting, and then we'll get back to the topic at hand. Trump posted, because it's been announced today that Justin Castro in Canada is retiring or something. Many people in Canada love being the 51st state. The United States can no longer suffer the massive trade deficits and subsidies that Canada needs to stay afloat. Justin Trudeau knew this and resigned. If Canada merged with the U.S., there would be no tariffs, taxes would go way down, and they would be totally secure from the threat of the Russian and Chinese ships that are constantly surrounding them. Together, what a great nation it would be. And so Trump is talking about Canada again. Justin Castro is taking a nap. The important part of that. So, two things. It sounds an awful lot in the big picture. You know, they're trying to overthrow the government of Canada right now with Elon's genocidal rape op. And whatever, we can talk about that at some point too. It seems like they are showing that Donald Trump has taken control of the British Commonwealth worldwide, which is to say the global regime worldwide, if you include Israel, which is, I guess, not part of the Commonwealth officially or something. And again, I had an episode a couple of weeks ago called King of the World. They showed you that Donald Trump is king of the world. This is what it would mean. And so that as a premise for reading this Truth Social post from Trump, I think makes a lot of sense. But then he says that they'd be totally secure from the Russian and Chinese ships that are constantly surrounding them. Is Canada being threatened by Russia and China Doesn't seem like it. We don't hear much about it. You would think that if democracy is at stake in Ukraine, where Russia is really, really threatening, then it would be even more at stake in Canada, our neighbor. Apparently it's not, even though Russian and Chinese ships are constantly surrounding them. Trump doesn't seem to be scared of that either. He's not saying in the campaign or anything. He didn't say in the campaign that that you need to vote Trump so that the United States and Canada are safe from the threats surrounding Canada. I didn't hear him say that once. And I think I listened to not every speech, but almost every speech. And I certainly tracked the clips of all the speeches. I didn't hear him say that. I could be forgetting. So I said, why are Chinese and Russian ships constantly surrounding Canada? And why doesn't Trump sound the least bit worried about their impact on national security? It's like China and Russia are performing the same role the reconstituted USA will perform. I bet China and Russia won't even argue. Why is that? Now, what role am I talking about? The role I'm talking about is China and Russia protecting trade channels and probably Canada in some sense from the global regime. The war is against the global regime by sovereign nations. Okay. If that war is not happening, sure looks like it is happening. I mean, I talk about it all the time and I present exactly how it's happening all the time. But if it's not happening, we're probably screwed. And so be it. You know, what are you going to do? We didn't really pay attention to what was happening in our country for our entire lives. Sort of what you get. But I suspect that China and Russia are protecting Canada and protecting those trade routes from the global regime. So the U.S. would then just be recognized as the country doing that after that point. That's all that would happen. The global regime is being removed from the United States of America. That's the point. That's what the goal is. Okay. It's not to figure out how the Democrats are bad. It's to make an illustration of that so that everybody understands what Donald Trump is doing is removing the global regime from the United States of America, just like the global regime is being removed from countries all around the world. All around the world. And by the way, I can get into, I found this yesterday doing research for Hindsight 2020, but there was an attempted fake Hong Kong election after Hong Kong was, publicly acknowledged as being part of China again. They tried to do a fake election and they were all, of course, arrested. And then the regime tried to pretend that China was threatening democracy by not allowing them to have a fake election and continue pretending that Hong Kong was an independent nation when it's not. Okay. So the pattern exists for a long time. Same thing they do down in Venezuela. They prop up a secondary government whenever they are able to. The way they are able to is by people not understanding that what's on TV is fake and not understanding how their government actually works. And we can cure these problems. This is a mental shift that could happen in a second. But, it's hard to think these radical thoughts. So I've never interacted with this account, but great comment here by someone named Shitstorm. Because Taiwan will come under control of China and Ukraine will come under control of Russia, and more than likely proxy states around the world, around the globe, world, will cease to exist. I mean, I don't know if this guy listens to my podcast, but he might, because I've been saying for years, 3 years, 4 years. Nah, 3 years probably. I don't think I really picked up on the geopolitical stuff until early 2022. So 3 years. That the proxy states are just being recognized as part of the country they actually are. Okay. It's not that Russia and Ukraine are at war. The world, the global regime is unable to contain the fact that that's not Ukraine. Okay. And they were actually waging war against the Donbass. The regime was waging war. And, you know, they call it an ethnic civil war in Ukraine as if it's Ukrainians doing it. It's the regime doing it. Okay. They have a hate movement in their country so that the citizens will allow them to wage war on their fellow citizens. That's what's happening. Okay. That's what's happening in all these places. We don't need to pretend that there is a war. The regime is, the war is between, not between countries. It's between the sovereign nations of the world and the global regime. And they're using every tool in their power to wage that war, which is why they went from media propaganda to manipulation of the currency and economic warfare, and then ended up with these attempts at kinetic war, which are obviously failed. Okay. To the extent there are any attempts happening in this current period, they have already failed. It's far more likely that they failed in the years before this period, before the Minsk agreement, before any of these agreements. You would think actually, and this would probably be how it would work, is that when those agreements were formalized, that's when the TV show part started with this whole business about the projection of this war with the comedic actor Volodymyr Zelensky. Do we have to pretend it's real? Do we have to? Just because the TV says it all the time and all the experts say it all the time, do we have to pretend it's real? Well, we can pretend it's at least questionably real, or that through hyperstition, it in some sense becomes real. And we'll probably talk about hyperstition a lot this year. So I responded, the removal of the global regime from all its proxy states worldwide is the major macro trend that virtually everyone misses and then dismisses because they're too busy trying to figure out who the truck bomber's cousin's BFF took to prom. And yeah, I gotta say, that's where we are. That is where we are. And people are still trying to figure out what kind of vitamins Matthew Leibelsberger's friend was taking. Whose shoemate? They're trying to figure out whether or not they can trust a guy online named Shoemate. Oh, we got to figure out if this guy's trustworthy, because if it is, then what he says must be true. Go, Sean Ryan. Everybody loves the television characters. I don't have a problem with these people, okay? Not a personal problem with them, but they're running ops. They're showing you they're running ops. Is it a good guy op? You can say that it is, okay? I can't tell you that it isn't. And I'm not trying to tell you that it isn't. I'm trying to tell you you're being lied to and misled on purpose. And the likelihood of that being by a good guy is very low. It's very low. Unless we want to stay here forever, you know? We can play white hats, black hats forever. Oh, I trusted this person because we decided he was a white hat and then he steered me wrong. Don't trust anybody. Don't trust me. Don't trust anybody. Do the work yourself. Figure out what it is you care about in the world, how you want to see your society be. Take back your power as a person. Stand up for yourself. Speak up for yourself, or else you're not going to get that society. Okay? It's not coming through voting in fake elections. It was never coming in voting in fake elections, through voting in fake elections. And let's pause for 1 second. Let's pause for 1 second. Okay. I'm going to take a 1 minute break because I want to adjust my camera. It looks, something's up on the edge there and it's really annoying me. Okay. So I am going to entertain you with this.
Now, this is an announcement, not a press conference. Therefore, there will be no questions. A complete transcript of the investigation is being prepared for publication on March 1st. At that time, the committee will hold a full-scale press conference. After nearly 4 months of investigation, followed by 9 weeks of hearings, it is the conclusion of this committee that Senator Carroll was assassinated by Thomas Richard Linder. It is our further conclusion that he acted entirely alone, motivated by a misguided sense of patriotism and a psychotic desire for public recognition. The committee wishes to emphasize that there is no evidence of any wider conspiracy. No evidence whatsoever. Now, it's our hope that this will put an end to the kind of irresponsible and exploitive speculation conducted by the press in recent months. As I've said, the complete text of the hearings, which provides the basis for the committee's findings, will be published March 1st. When you have had a chance to examine the evidence, you will have every opportunity to ask those questions which remain unanswered, if there are any. That was all. Thank you.
Love that. Okay. I think we're mostly better now. Maybe not 100% better. Mostly better. Mostly better is good enough. I saw during that brief break that we have a number of Rumble rants and subscription business. Snowcat Operator just became a monthly supporter and gifted 5 subscriptions. Thank you, man. Honestly, thank you. It was great to meet you at GART over the summer, and I hope we smoke a cigar again. Karamaga, $20. Glad to see you back. Thank you very much. Glad to see all of you as well. And Snowcat maybe gifted another 5. Thank you very much, man. Wait, maybe these are just repeating because it says Karamaga again. What in the world is going on with my Rumble feed here? Glad to see you back. Well, if you did it twice, then have you done it thrice? This is really getting confusing. The chat is just repeating. That's wild. Okay, I guess we don't need to talk about that anymore. I think Polymath might have done one too. Yeah, Polymath Anon gifted 5 subscriptions. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Man, maybe Snowcat just keeps doing it again and again. 5 plus 5, he said. All right. Thank you. Okay. So let's get back into it because today we had a very important televised ritual. One of the televised rituals that we pretend makes up our society. This is what makes us so important. This is how we show everybody that we are the freest democracy in the entire world. This is the peaceful transition of power.
Of electors appointed to vote for Vice President of the United States is 538. Within that whole number, a majority is 270. The votes for Vice President of the United States are as follows. J.D. Vance of the state of Ohio has received 312 votes.
Yay! J.D. Vance has still received 0 votes.
Tim Walz of the state of Minnesota has received 226 votes.
Tim Walz received 0 votes.
This announcement of the state of the vote by the President of the Senate shall be deemed a sufficient declaration of the persons elected, President and Vice President of the United States, each for a term beginning on the 20th day of January 2025, and shall be entered together with the list of the votes on the journals of the House and the Senate. Thank you very much.
Oh, Kamabla. Yeah, it's important to remember that they did not receive any real votes. That didn't happen. To the extent that Donald Trump received electoral votes in some real and constitutional way, great. Okay, but he would be the only one. J.D. Vance is an irrelevance, okay? It should be considered, at least sometimes. There's no way I could convince you of this, okay? I have a suspicion that the original Constitution was already reinstalled. That's what we're actually operating on. And that the elements that aren't that are only the TV show, because ultimately we're under military government. Okay. And I mean, I think we just have to wrap our heads around that somehow. All right. The political television show you see playing out on TV cannot be real. It can't. Right. If it is fake and the enemy is still in control, I'm not saying that to say that we have everything in the book, like it's all wrapped up. I'm not saying that. Okay. There's still plenty of chaos that can be caused. Don't get me wrong. And part of that chaos is people realizing that, like, oh, they've been misled by the television that everyone knows misleads them. And I'm not trying to be judgmental because I was there. All right. I still enjoy some things on television. Like, I like to be entertained. Just while I'm being entertained, I also think, what is this trying to convince me to believe? And in all the moments that my ears prick up when I'm watching or reading the fake news, the same thing happens in movies. And if you ever watched Badlands Story Hour, I mean, it's the same thing. I just apply the same mental process all the time to everything. And that's where it gets me. It's way faker than people can believe. Okay. If there are legitimate members of Congress and legitimate members of the Senate, then if they are somehow mixed into this television show, they would be the only ones with any legitimacy in that process. And therefore, according to their legitimacy, there may be a legitimate process, right? If there's only 9 people in that body consenting, right, to passing a piece of legislation or not, and those 9 people vote 9-0 in one direction, well, that's the direction. We don't need to get into that stuff, okay? It's stuff I think about. I'm just sharing it to explain part of my thought process, but largely irrelevant, okay? So we watched this ridiculous ceremony play out with Mike Johnson, and I'll tell you what, the ceremony was ridiculous. The Congress, shameful as always. What an embarrassing collection of degenerate retards. No one should trust any of these people with power. They are all a joke. They are actors on television at best. I find basically all of them awful. Well, all they do is lie, and that's the most important thing. There's not a person in that body that declined to call Biden president. Maybe it's an op, I understand, and I can withdraw this complaint of them as the basis for my distrust of them if we ever find that out, okay? But assuming that's not the case, basically only Marjorie Taylor Greene ever actually said that Biden's a fake president. So why would anyone trust any of those people? I'm going to try to find for 1 second the House Speaker vote. I meant to do this before we began because I just want to show you how embarrassing this is. And it's the sort of thing, this is the sort of complaint that communists would try to deaden by saying, that's racist, because I'm about to criticize a black man. Oh no, black men are going to be criticized. I was really hoping this would have a transcript. I'm trying to find, okay. I'm trying to find, I think it's Al Green, the congressman from like the Houston area. McGarvey. Okay, so I'm trying to find it by the alphabetical order because that's how it's presented. Let me ask the machine a question. There he is. Al Green. Yes, I was right. Okay, so I don't know if it's worse if I do this without the volume on for you or... Oh, I nailed it. What luck. And this is really funny. So I just skipped back to a random place after hearing McDowell and thought maybe the G's will be around here. And it's at 1 hour, 7 minutes and brought me right up to Al Green. Here we go.
Green of Tennessee. Johnson. Green of Texas.
For the preferred candidate of liberty and justice for all, the hope and dream of the enslaved.
The gentleman may respond by surname.
That's a disgrace. That's a disgrace. We should all be ashamed that that is happening in our name. That's a disgrace. Okay? Singing some song about slavery. What the fuck is he talking about? Because he's going to vote for Hakeem Jeffries in this ridiculous television show. That's a disgrace. And by the way, just to be clear, disgrace has nothing to do with him being black. The entire Congress is a disgrace. That sort of thing should never happen because the body should be serious enough that that never happens. Or let it happen all the time. I maybe just talked myself out of it. Maybe we should only have that. Get passionate, everybody. Ruin the vote. Make the vote take 7 hours. That's a clown show. The entire thing was a clown show. But I must say, Mike Johnson's speech was mighty fine. Okay. A lot of people got really excited about the Durham boats. The Durham boats mentioned in Kevin McCarthy's speaker's speech once he was chosen last year, or no, sorry, in 2023. People got very excited about the quote unquote comms that were in that speech. It was very interesting. A lot to look into. The same with Mike Johnson's speech. And maybe it's worth pulling it up now. Maybe it's worth pulling it up now. I was really not going to do it because I want to get into this 14th Amendment stuff. But I think I might. You know what? Let's do Mike Johnson's speech tomorrow. We'll do Mike Johnson's speech tomorrow because that's still going to be important. There's still some stuff in there, and I'll just briefly mention right now. He said specifically that it was the Congress's duty to restore, I don't remember the exact wording he used, the principles from our great revolution. That's what he said. Our goal is to protect our great revolution. Basically that. And then he talked about how that period started in 1975 and 1976. Well, 1975 is when on Flag Day, June 14th, also Trump's birthday, is when the Continental Army was stood up. And then, of course, we had the Declaration on July 4th of 1776. Mike Johnson is talking about 1975 and 1976, okay? Donald Trump said the country's 250th birthday starts Memorial Day of this year. Maybe it'll even start 2 weeks late on Trump's birthday, June 14th, Flag Day, the day the Continental Army was stood up. He said the birthday goes from Memorial Day of this year to July 4th of next year, of 2026. That's the country's 250th birthday celebration, according to Donald J. Trump. He said that in one of his Agenda 47 statements. You can look it up and find it. I think it was the one about futurism. And I'll tell you what. Oh, man. I know everybody says that they don't mind the live digs and the holds for processing, but I hate doing it. I don't like doing it. I wish that I had, sometimes these thoughts just come to me and I want to add it in, because on the podcast that I would be recording, the audio version, I would get to that point and then I'd be like, oh, damn, you know what? I should just insert this thing. I'll go load it and record the audio and then I'll continue. And I kind of like this way is more free flowing, but I don't like that I pause on all of these. Where is it on TrumpOffice.com? DonaldJTrump.com. Oh, yes, here we are. It's so weird that there's two of everything. There is the OG Trump version that is still live and is still used. And then there was the Trump Vance 2024 that no one cares about. Remember when people would get really triggered about me insulting JD Vance in any way, like just questioning, hey, maybe there's something wrong here? People don't get triggered about that anymore. What do you think that means? Okay, so future. Flying cars. Freedom cities. It's funny because this was one of my favorite Trump Agenda 47 videos. They were all very interesting. I mean, if you never watched them, you get a whole lot from watching them. All I do is listen to what this man says and take him seriously because he's the president. All right. If he's not the president and he's just an actor, again, we're all screwed. Okay. I still think we'll get through it. I don't want that to be the case. But if it does, at least by the time it becomes a problem, we will be prepared. And that is our job to do rather than bowing to the people on TV. But Trump's Agenda 47 is quite interesting. And there are a lot of clues when looked at through the proper lens about what it is he's intending. And I get that that sounds crazy. I understand that people are like, okay, so we got to adopt your whole viewpoint in order to look at this stuff. And then we just got to agree with everything you say in order to figure out why that's important. I get it. Okay. I'm telling you, I take him seriously and take him to be president, which also means, by the way, that quote unquote, we have it all. And I think that we have it all has a major implication on everything that's happening now, including our elections, including how things are going in public, quote unquote, our democracy. It could be entirely run by machine right now. If that machine is based off the central narrative, then that government would go to the regime. If it's based on what people really care about at a fundamental level, as expressed in their data, then we're already back to the constitutional system. We're actually in a direct democracy governed by machine. And Elon Musk hints at that all the time. And it is at least possible that direct democracy in an irrefutable way that doesn't require elections could provide a better form of government. That is a different conversation, I think, for down the line, although I think about it a lot. And I read about it sometimes. Okay. These are ideas that are out there. But going off of what the people actually care about, what real people actually care about, and what the founders actually intended, that's the only lens I'm using. Okay. There's not some like elaborate conspiracy that all these parts have to fit. I just think in every single thing, if you look at things that way, what was the founders' original intent? What are our actual natural rights? What should we do if we are aiming toward a more godly world? And what do the people care about? If you just look through those lenses, then you're having the same thoughts I am. If you look at this stuff and you are diligent about it, and that's it. Okay. It's not like some magic potion that I'm sprinkling on things and coming up with crazy ideas. People are like, I saw this on DPH the other night too. People were like, you're just projecting and speculating. That is definitely some of what we're doing. Okay. But the wealthiest people in the world, certainly in American society in the last few years, and we can leave aside the bankers and people who are already billionaires and stuff, people making the most money, venture capitalists. Okay. What do? They project out into the future. That's the point. Okay. You're supposed to get ahead of trends. You're supposed to be very, very in tune with what the world is actually doing now, have an objective for where you could see the world going, and attempt to provide those things the world needs to get there. You see the gap, you figure out the bridge. Okay. That's all it is. That is an extraordinarily valuable thing. And I'm not saying that I, therefore, am extraordinarily valuable because I do that. I'm as valuable as that information and those projections are, and however much they map onto reality and however useful and helpful they are to people. Okay. And if that's zero, then I'm not valuable doing this, and that's fine. All right. But we should be doing it. It is only responsible to do it, to be doing it. If we believe we are actually at war against this thing, and I think most people believe we are, and at bottom, we're in a war against of good against evil, right? As a Christian, you're fighting it, right? I mean, that's the point, right? So shouldn't we actually be trying to figure out what the enemy's doing, what their tactics are, looking ahead, figuring out what they might be throwing at us in advance so that we don't spend our time figuring out what Matthew Leibelsberger's cousin's vitamin selection is? I mean, I don't think it's a complicated way to view the world. I really don't. We have to figure out what is coming. And sometimes it's going to be through proposing 20 different stories, and 19 of them don't hit. But at least we knew this is a plausible potentiality. We are going to think about what it means. We are going to think about the likelihood of whether or not we will reach that potentiality and whether or not we must respond in advance. And then we will watch things happen in the world, and things will map onto that reality or they will not. And if they don't, then you let it go, or you keep it in the background if you think it's still possible. But the only way you can ever figure out what anything maps onto is if you're willing to engage with future possibilities. That's the only way. It does not matter to see whether or not we can make what we think and believe map onto the story, the central narrative that comes out from the news every day. And most people are on that timeline. Only that timeline. They follow that timeline exactly. They are obsessed with what is on television. They are trying to solve a television show. Okay? It's like the people predicting the end of Game of Thrones or True Detective. True Detective people were insane. True Detective is the best show ever, by the way. Everybody out there should watch it. Some people might be a little offended. It's some dark subject matter, but it is the best show. All 3 seasons. Okay? But what people tried to do was solve the crime and advance the show. Now, if that's your pastime, if that's your hobby, wonderful, right? But you're not going to change what's happening. Okay? It's a TV show. We can figure out, or at least try to focus on, the things that are happening in reality. Okay? And in reality, we are having our society governed by the most corrupt, evil, and retarded people who have ever walked the earth, because we don't engage with how anything works except the politics. So, yeah, I know I'm on a kind of a soapbox today, but I've been thinking about this stuff for 2 weeks, And I've been engaging in these conversations, sometimes with my friends, and I think it's frustrating, but these are conversations we have to have. And we love each other, so we can have heated debates about these things. Rumble Rants, Keith Singer. Hey, Chris, Happy New Year. Nice to see you live. Hope to reconnect in Las Vegas, and that would be the next GART. And yeah, I believe I'll be at the next GART. So if you're there, I'll see you. $10. Thank you. Polymath Anon just became a monthly supporter, even though he was just throwing monthly support subscriptions around like dollar bills at the strip club. Jay Drake, hey brother, is now a monthly supporter. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you very much, guys. I'm having a hard time checking the chat at all, aside from those, because they come up with bright colors. I'm just going to scan Trump's. I remember it came out in about like early March of 2023, maybe. I was with Patrick at CPAC. Again, an embarrassing clown show. Man, oh man. The people, I'm not talking about all of them, right? Not talking about all of them. I went to Hollywood parties for a living for 15 years and threw them, okay? At all of those events, there were people I loved and respected, and then a bunch of absolute degenerates, okay? So I'm making the same complaint about CPAC. I am part of it. I'm not saying I'm not, okay? I'm not judging everybody. I'm just saying, man, oh man, that place is chock full of the second category. All of the sniveling grovelers who are trying to advance their political power by kissing ass and shaking hands. And again, I get it, because I did it when I was a hard and fast member of the Party of False Decorum, and I hope that I am less so one now, okay? So see, we all do it. Nonetheless, gotta stop. The point is stopping. The point is recognizing the error of your ways and stopping and doing better. Some might call it repenting. Okay, so I was right. March 3rd, 2023. Here is Donald J. Trump. Let's hear him talk about the future. I'm going to speed it up a little bit just because I don't know how long this is, and I only really want to focus on the one part.
Past generations of Americans pursued big dreams and daring projects that once seemed absolutely impossible. They pushed across an unsettled continent and built new cities in the wild frontier. They transformed American life with the interstate highway system. Magnificent it was. And they launched a vast network of satellites into orbit all around the earth. But today, our country has lost its boldness. Under my leadership, we will get it back in a very big way. If you look at just 3 years ago, what we were doing was unthinkable. How good it was, how great it was for our country. Our objective will be a quantum leap in the American standard of living. That's what will happen. Here are just a few of the ways we can do it. Almost 1/3 of the landmass of the United States is owned by the federal government, with just a very, very small portion of that land, just a fraction, 1/2 of 1%. Would you believe that? We should hold a contest to charter up to 10 new cities and award them to the best proposals for development. In other words, we'll actually build new cities in our country again. These freedom cities will reopen the frontier, reignite American imagination, and give hundreds of thousands of young people and other people, all hardworking families, a new shot at home ownership and, in fact, the American dream. Another big opportunity is in transportation. Dozens of major companies in the United States and China are racing to develop vertical takeoff and landing vehicles for families and individuals. Just as the United States led the automotive revolution in the last century, I want to ensure that America, not China, leads this revolution in air mobility. These breakthroughs can transform commerce, bring a giant infusion of wealth into rural America, and connect families in our country in new ways. Likewise, through our Strategic National Manufacturing Initiative, which is going to be very big and very, very successful, we will turn forgotten communities into hives of industry, producing the goods we will no longer import from China. We will also have a major initiative on lowering the cost of living with a special focus on lowering the cost of a new car and lowering the cost to build a single-family home. And they will be beautiful homes. And I will ask Congress to support baby bonuses for young parents to help launch a new baby boom. Finally, I'll challenge the governors of all 50 states to join me in a great modernization and beautification campaign, getting rid of ugly buildings, refurbishing our parks and our public spaces, making cities and towns more livable, ensuring a pristine environment, and building towering monuments to our true American heroes. Very importantly, I will also make sure all of these new places are safe. We love and cherish our police. They will do the job the way they have to. It is time to start talking about greatness for our country again. I will dramatically increase living standards and build a future that brings our country together through excitement, opportunity, and success. Thank you very much.
Well, that was certainly interesting, but it was not the one I wanted. That is very upsetting. Wow. The longest and most worthless hold for processing of all time. Okay, so there was a one of those videos where Trump said our birthday, America's 250th birthday, is starting May 31st or whatever it is. I think he maybe said May 31st, which G Money would go crazy for. Maybe he said Memorial Day. But of this year and going to next year. And so I've said consistently for years that I think there's a possibility that the process we are currently witnessing prior to Donald Trump retaking public control, publicly recognized control, could take a few more months. Maybe it won't. We can hope it won't, but maybe it will. And we should be prepared for that mentally, if nothing else. And we should be mentally prepared for that because otherwise people are going to get jumpy and go crazy. But there's more than enough reason to believe that's not what's happening. And again, been tracking it for years, okay? Taking these ideas about the future seriously means you look for signs of those ideas about the future. So as those signs compile and you can see more clearly what that future might look like, you can talk about it more so that other people can see it arrive. And then when you see it, you're like, oh, this is exactly the thing I was expecting, rather than, I can't believe the TV tells me this happened. It really does make the biggest difference in the world to think about what the future actually is and figure out how we can get there to the one that we actually want, okay? Now, another thing to mention about that speech is that freedom cities do sound very, very much like what Curtis Yarvin talks about. And Curtis Yarvin, also known as Mencius Moldbug, is like the father of neo-reactionary political thought. He is thought of that way. Nick Land talks about him. I talked about Nick Land a few weeks ago. Yarvin is an atheist and a techno-optimist and a scientific materialist. And so I have lots of disagreements with him about those things. He also believes that history is real. People say he's a brilliant man. Maybe he is in other means. He's got an enjoyable enough writing style. He has certainly some good insight. But what he talks about for government is kind of a patchwork of these sovereign lands with their own internal governments, and they're allowed to live however they want. And so Freedom Cities does sound kind of like that. And so we have to have our eyes out because that is part of the tech utopian, which will be a dystopia, of course, because first of all, these people are scientific materialists, which means they are retarded. And they're not competent at the things they do. They don't do them well enough to make them the good in the right way, right? Twitter works fantastically well, but it also censors people and it tells people it's free speech, right? So that's actually the worst thing. That's not doing something well. There are reasons to be concerned about all of that. And the problem is that other scientific materialists take these people more seriously than anyone else in the world. Okay. That is one of the primary problems with what Elon Musk is doing right now. Now, Elon Musk might be 100% an op. He might be running an op for good reasons all the time. He might be spotlighting all of these terrible people. All good. I generally like Elon. I don't trust him. Okay. So I look at him both ways. What if Elon is actually the evil possibility? That is definitely a possibility. He's got way too much power for any one man if he has that much power. Okay. His priorities, as stated, are good to an extent, but not a full extent, a scientific materialist extent. And he doesn't follow through on them. Okay. So those are reasons to be very skeptical about Elon Musk and about the whole tech utopia bullshit anyway. These guys are scientific materialists. They are missing major things about reality. They believe in tons of fake science and tons of fake history, and they are not able to remove it from their thinking. And I should be fair, okay? The Yarvin I'm reading is from 2008. But I am pretty sure that he is still a scientific materialist and an atheist. So regardless of how his opinions on other matters might have changed, this concern is not addressed by that. There is no way to lead people in a good or effective way like that, because however much your scientific materialism and the memorization of the tenets of scientific materialism might inform you about the world and about history and allows you to manipulate those parts when and where you need them to gain power, it does not inform you at all about what underlies that. Okay? It doesn't inform you how to operate in reality prime when you believe reality prime and the false reality are indistinguishable and you have memorized every part of the false reality and included in your thinking. And so that is a problem with a lot of that thought, and it's a fatal problem to the extent that that part remains. And so it's very important to recognize these things again as they play out in the world. Now, a lot of people think that Trump disappeared, and we've been shown a television show about Donald Trump where Donald Trump is also a character for these last 4 years. And that's entirely possible. Donald Trump, whatever Donald Trump is taking control. And that's going to go one of two ways. And if it goes the tech utopian way, that might be the bad way. And maybe I'll just show this now. I thought I was going to have to save this, but it actually kind of came up naturally. This is what the face of, and I'm not going to say anything like founder or controller or any of that, just the face. Okay. Elon Musk is the face of Twitter, the face of Tesla, the face of SpaceX. He is their public comms person. Okay. The idea that Elon Musk is actually controlling all of these things and doing everything else he's doing is preposterous. As preposterous as the idea that Elon Musk bought the most effective information weapon in the history of the world for $44 billion from billionaires who used it to control the world and make those billions. Doesn't make any sense at all. And we should stop pretending there's any chance that's true. And people are like, okay, well, that's a little too far. Now you're asking me to just believe in this other reality. Yes, I'm asking you to stop believing in the false reality construct that explains this fact about reality prime and understand through obvious and irrefutable logical deduction that it's not possible to buy the most powerful information weapon in the history of the world for $44 billion from billionaires who use it to control markets and make themselves billionaires and overthrow countries. I don't mean to be forceful about this because I understand that you guys are probably getting this, or maybe you got it way before me. Okay. But man, oh man, everything just gets dumber. Sam Altman said 2 days ago on X, formerly Twitter, I always wanted to write a 6-word story. Here it is. Near the singularity, unclear which side. Near the singularity, unclear which side. This is what I have talked about extensively, many times. We are There is a train running through a canyon in the Old West. And there are the black hats and the white hats, right? I mean, this is how it is in Westerns. I'm not saying anything else other than that, although it's the same thing. So whatever. Except when you get into Freemasonry and then it's different. And maybe that's a problem, but everybody pretends it's not. So they're running down the sides of the canyon, and they're both going to attempt to rob the train at the same time as the train speeds through the canyon. That's what we're dealing with right now. And that's what he's talking about too. Okay. Near the singularity, unclear which side. The false reality is breaking. It's either breaking or it's not breaking, but it is breaking. And at some point, people are just going to believe one story or believe the other story. And you could call that, because the story ultimately is the Jesus one. People will perceive it as the return of the Messiah. And of course, there's a Zionist movement that is attempting to bring this on in the fakest way ever. Probably as a grand show to confuse people about what's actually happening. The false reality is breaking down. Okay. And at some point, people are going to go one way or the other. And it will be, so we're already over a majority. I've been saying this for 4 years. We've always been a majority, always. It's a matter of whether or not people will realize the ultimate truth and admit it, so that other people can understand, oh, there are other people who believe like me. I'm not crazy. Okay. When that thing happens, there's going to be some moment, and then whatever 20, 30, 40% people think it's going to be between 94 and 96% overall go one direction. That will just happen. All of the people who ride the fence and are unwilling to speak up, cannot think for themselves, at one moment, they go one direction. Okay. That's what he's talking about. Everybody reaches the train, and either the black hats rob the train by killing all the white hats rob the train by killing all the black hats. And you don't have to get them all, right? Maybe some of them escape. Who cares? Well, it's not good that any of them escape, of course, but that's just how it's going to be, of course, because this isn't about killing. It's about belief. And that's going to be the moment. And either everyone will fall for the bullshit and get back on the same page with the central narrative, or they will have left it forever. Okay? So that's what we are striving for. And it doesn't have anything to do with politics. It's about public understanding. These things are happening no matter what. And the public's belief one way or the other is going to dictate what the reality to follow is. Do we exist on the reality prime layer? Or do we exist forever in that false reality? Because in that false reality is the complete end of human liberty and probably the end of free thought for a very long time. Dan Wright gifted a subscription. Thank you, Dan. I was just trying to make sure in the chat that no one thinks I've lost my mind. Hey, man, maybe I have. Or maybe everybody else is retarded. Not everybody besides me, but you know how big everybody is at this point. Okay, so where the hell was I going? Let's get into this. So I was covering the gay ritual today, where global communists pretend that they have confirmed that Donald Trump really rules the country. It's mindless. It's mindless. You think the global regime that we are at war with just said that Donald Trump's allowed to rule because he won a fake election and then this ceremony happened? Give me a break, right? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And the people involved in the ritual know it's ridiculous. So I was covering that today. Most of what I was talking about during the Badlands coverage, and by all means, watch it if you want. I was talking about how ridiculous it all is and how the 14th Amendment, I started by talking about how George P. Fletcher's Our Secret Constitution makes it quite clear that our Constitution was fully overthrown on purpose 160 years ago. George P. Fletcher is a law professor at Columbia University, a communist indoctrination factory, of course. He is a liberal, obviously. He is a communist. He is a globalist, of course. And he is a Zionist, quite plainly. Okay? These are facts about who George P. Fletcher is and what he believes. And my opinions of him are irrelevant. I'm not even expressing opinions. I'm just saying he's a commie and he's a Zionist. And he would certainly admit the Zionism part. And he would be like, now, sir. Well, he's dead, but now, sir, it is wrong to say I am a communist. I don't identify myself that way at all. I identify as a progressive. Okay, well, sir, that's a communist. I talked about, as I was reading this book in the early part of last year, how George P. Fletcher made the case as a communist and Zionist Columbia Law School professor. He made the case that our country had been overthrown on purpose through the Civil War. The Civil War was literally fought in George P. Fletcher's telling to found the country again on a new set of ideals. That is the commie way of saying, hey, we overthrew your country. And of course, they did overthrow the country. Who overthrew the country? The global regime overthrew the country. It's not even confusing, okay? It really is not confusing. Some of our founders fought for liberty. Some of them were simply complicit in the regime's plans for our country. And the liberty they fought for was then systematically taken away by the global regime, who was forced on some level to compromise with the founders that actually cared about the people of this nation. Here is George Fletcher. I think that in the first episode of the year, it's worth going through some of this. So here we are, one of the pages, took that picture myself, of George P. Fletcher's Our Secret Constitution, a book that you can get, probably published by Columbia University Press. Isn't it amazing how the universities, some of the Ivies have their own publishing house? That's what we want out of our public institutions. Professors telling us why communism is grand and the only thing we've ever known, who sell books, and they sell books by going on television shows to indoctrinate the entire nation about what retards in college believe. It's crazy. Our country's crazy. I mean, it's just a communist state, you know? Of course, this is how it would be. So, so this is the second page of George P. Fletcher's book. And I said, why is he repeating these conspiracy theories that we are told aren't real? And I have a typo there. Oh, you can't see that post. I should have just not mentioned the typo. The original motive for resisting Southern secession was preserving the Union. The resulting and final idea was to abolish slavery and reinvent the United States on the basis of a new set of principles. Now, did they abolish slavery by conscripting the slaves into the army, with which they forced through the ratification of the Reconstruction Amendments? Yes, that's what they did. And that is why they abolished slavery. And it is not anything other than that. The principles of this new legal regime are so radically different from our original Constitution, drafted in 1787, that they deserve to be recognized as a second American Constitution. Columbia Law School professor. The new Constitution established, in fact, a second American republic. The first Constitution was based on the principles of peoplehood as a voluntary association, individual freedom, and Republican elitism. The guiding premises of the second Constitution were, in contrast, organic nationhood, equality of all persons, and popular democracy. These are principles radically opposed to each other. That's not me saying it. It's a Columbia Law School professor saying it. Okay? He's saying quite clearly, we fought the Civil War to overthrow your Constitution, and we were successful, and it was good. Now, I'm going to go through a couple more passages from our secret Constitution, but the reason I mentioned this today is because, this whole 14th Amendment thing, the 14th Amendment is the basis for virtually our entire legal system and the way the courts decide things. All the precedent is based on the 14th Amendment and this overthrow of our country. So that stuff can't be addressed without this thing. And when this thing is addressed, all the rest of that falls away. Okay? And that's the point. I don't need to focus on the Cybertruck bomber's girlfriend's brother if nobody knows about this. The politics are a soap opera. The politics are a soap opera. Our country is not what we were told it was. That cannot be solved by proving the Democrats are hypocrites. It is a controlled opposition dynamic founded upon a false reality. Okay? Solving the riddle doesn't get you anywhere. It doesn't matter if the Republicans beat the Democrats or if they support Trump's agenda or not. All of those people are illegitimate. They operate in treasonous fashion in an illegitimate government. Okay? This is the thing. This is the explanation for why the government is illegitimate, by the way. And the SCOTUS history of decisions and the lower court, of course, cases never get challenged to SCOTUS because of lawfare, because of money and media manipulation. The cases to chip away at this almost never reach the SCOTUS level. Sometimes they do, and things have been chipped away at a little bit, but of course, they're only chipped away because there are other workarounds already available. They're not actually going to do anything against the regime. So every change that can be made in the politics we see on TV is cosmetic ultimately. Until the uniparty is visible to the people of the country and until they understand what has been done to them and been done in their name, the change you seek is not possible. Okay? Again, none of this is violent. None of it, in a sense, is it revolutionary? I don't think so. I mean, what was the revolution then? Parts of the regime funded both sides of it. Okay. The war ultimately is against the bankers. If you want to reclaim your country, the people have to do it. The people have to first attempt to do it within that false reality layer so that we don't have to do it on the reality prime layer, right? The reality prime layer is actual violent overthrow, people using kinetic power. This is a different kind of power. This is the ultimate threat of kinetic power. 99% of the people understand how the 1% is actually playing them. I'm not talking about Bernie's 1%. I'm talking about something that's actually much, much, much smaller than 1%. We are being played, though. That is the point. Let's go to a next slide here. Here we are. More from George P. Fletcher. A more powerful central government was a critical part of the new constitutional order. This would be a government that would raise income taxes, as it started to do during the war. The government would enact welfare legislation to care for the widows and orphans of the war. How about that? You got welfare out of it too. And income taxes and welfare. They made the income tax state and the welfare state as part of the Civil War. Okay? That's what the war was fought for. The communists took over. It's only a communist state. It's not something else other than that. It's just that. It is a state controlled by the global regime. We are used as their labor, right? The blood and treasure is what guarantees the money. Or I'm sorry, the sweat and blood of the American people is what guarantees the money. We are backing that money. The US dollar is used all over the world. And so we also enforce the regime agenda around the world in other countries that don't want the regime. The fact that other countries are kicking out the global regime means that we are no longer enforcers on the regime's behalf. What does that mean? That means the regime already no longer controls the country. You are watching a show, okay? And Trump is the face of, if not the actual leader of the other side, which is a military occupation, okay? And we talk about this in devolution for years, and people are still like, these guys are grifters. They don't know what they're talking about. Devolution didn't happen. Those people didn't read devolution. Those people are also actual grifters. It's crazy. These people are crazy. Okay, let me continue. And most important, it would be a government that would have the capacity to supervise private relationships. The Constitution was no longer focused just on the individual struggling to secure his freedom against the government. The government would have an active role in protecting and securing the autonomy of its citizens. Isn't that amazing? An active role in protecting our autonomy and security. Do you feel like your autonomy or your security are protected? They eliminated individual sovereignty. That is what he's saying. They no longer focused on the individual struggling to secure his freedom against the government. Against the government. They said, hey, guy, we got that. We'll take care of it for you. You don't have to fight against us anymore. We'll take care of you now. And we are told that this was the greatest revelation for liberty in the history of man, because they abolished slavery after they used those slaves to make communism the law violently. Gosh, man, it's like they're the same as the Bolsheviks and the Jacobins. Oh man, the Jacobins, they were doing that at like the same time. Oh no, they were around the time of our revolution. What was I thinking? So you got the Bolsheviks. There are waves of these revolutions every 80 years, and we're in the middle of one now. And we should recognize that and fight back against that thing as hard as possible, because he's telling you what they do. They literally said they abolished slavery, and at that time, they ended individual sovereignty. Okay? That's what he's saying. It's mind-blowing, man. And I don't know why. Maybe I'm just not the right guy to communicate this to people, but like maybe they're like, stop yelling at me. And if you are, all good, right? I get it on some level, but come on, it's taking way too long. And you're still focused on the Cybertruck bomber, right? So are you watching, like gritting your teeth and trembling nervously while they decide whether or not Mike Johnson's going to be Speaker of the House? All of them are clowns. All of them. You have an illegitimate government. Nothing they can do on TV is going to affect this. All right. The TV show exists to support this. And you have to deal with that in a real way. Real way. Here we are. Back to George P. Fletcher. As my rewriting of the 13th Amendment would have it, securing and protecting the autonomy of labor would become the duty of all state power. So he's saying this is not how it was written, but this is how it should have been written because this is what we were ultimately doing with it. He is translating the motivation through the ages for us because he knows the motivation, because he is one of the regime's experts. Securing and protecting the autonomy of labor would become the duty of all state power. Government would have to keep a vigilant watch on all labor transactions to ensure that there never again would arise relationships bordering on slavery or involuntary servitude. They need to know everything a business does to make sure they're not doing slavery, while we have a global slave trade continuing. Who runs it? The regime. Who was running it in 1865? White people. No, the regime. Same as always. It's always the same. It's always the same. When they say history repeats, this is what they mean. But the problem with history repeating is that history is false in this way. History comes from the false reality. It explains reality prime to the extent it can't avoid or cover up reality prime. It explains it in an inverted fashion. It is the opposite in specific ways on purpose. Okay? And you have to understand this in order to unwind it. And without unwinding it, I mean, then it looks like history repeating, but it's just always the same thing. It's just always the same thing. He's telling us that the abolishment of slavery was actually the government providing for the security and welfare, quote unquote, sovereignty of the individual and monitoring every aspect of business in order to preserve that for the individual. And so what do you need to do that successfully? Well, you can't just ask all the people individually. You can't send a guy around and be like, please fill out all these forms. What do? You have them pay taxes and tell you what they are doing in their business, in their tax forms. And then the government monitors everything else business does. Everything based on this and interstate commerce, even when it's not interstate commerce. Oh, the internet is interstate and your internet business is, that makes your internet business interstate commerce. Okay, commie. I'll grovel now. Tell me what you need me to do. Tell me what you need me to do, commie. You're my overlord. You're my authority. You're my state. I will bow down to you and do whatever you want. Let me fill out my taxes. Let me tell you everything my business has done. It's crazy. Let's continue. I mean, it is incredible to me how obvious and blatant he is about this, and that we are expected to simply accept it. So here he says, and he talks again and again. I mean, let's just read this. There's no doubt that the nations whose struggle I described, France, Germany, and the United States, think of themselves as Christian nations. Yet, the very idea of the redemption of the entire nation through law, okay, resonates more with the older tradition of the Jewish national mission under the Torah revealed at Mount Sinai. So the mission of our nation actually is to practice Judaism as the founding of our nation, not Christianity, Judaism. Okay, that's what it is. First, there was the law, then there was actual morality and redemption through salvation. The law without the morality and the redemption through salvation is evil. It's just evil. And that is what they do. And I'm not saying that Jews are evil. I'm saying that without morality, an objective basis for morality that is not just aligning with the law and then doing good deeds in the world is necessary for a good society or for a good individual. Following the law is not enough. And so he is telling you that society, though the people think it is a Christian society, he is showing right here how little he cares about actual democracy. Okay. The people think it's a Christian society, but what the society really is meant to be is based on the Jewish national mission. The Jewish national mission is Zionism. Okay. The Jewish national mission and Zionism are inseparable. So he says here, my account seeks to unite the divergent strains of all religions that trace their roots to the original idea in Exodus of a nation living under God and under law. Okay. So under God, just not yours. Just not yours, the people of the nation. And again, this is not in any way an attack on Jewish people or Judaism. I still have Jewish friends, and I say all of these things in front of them, by the way, which I think is how we have to proceed. I mean, you can't go around getting involved in one of their controlled opposition wars because that's what they want, right? That's the worst idea. People are like, the Nazis were the good guys because the Jews are bad. No, they're both the bad guys. They're both the same regime doing what they needed to move the Jews of Europe down to Palestine to create the proxy state of Israel. They worked together. So it can't be that one's the good guy and one's the bad guy if they work together. And if the good guy, if they're collectivists and socialists, then they're not the good guy. They're just Bolsheviks. And our neocons now are just Nazis and Bolsheviks. It's all the same thing. It all really is the same thing, by the way. You can trace those historical roots. People would say, that's not what the experts say. If you can trace the historical roots in a significant way, that's what it is. Not the thing that they lie about and that all historians agree that it's this way. Who cares what all historians agree? It says it right there. You can trace the roots. It's so funny, man. It's so funny. And the idea that it's anti-Semitic is so stupid. The regime is the problem. There are evil people who will go along with the regime who are not Jewish. And most of the evil people in the regime aren't Jewish anyway. I mean, it's so stupid. It's so stupid the way we have to talk about this shit. Always because we're going to get published or punished in public. Watch, I'm going to lose my ability to stream on Google Video again. Let's do a couple more George Fletchers. Man, we are not getting as far as I wanted to today because I can't stop doing this shit. I'm just so mind blown about it continuously. And I think it's so important. George P. Fletcher, Columbia University communist and Zionist expert of the regime's law. The law, once again. I said Fletcher really lays it out here, right here on the table. The Reconstruction Amendments exist to force the government to create equality. His central argument in the book is that the Civil War was ultimately fought for the sake of replacing the original Constitution. Okay. He says, as race came center stage in the truncated arena of equal protection, in quotes, the Supreme Court, let me just make sure that's, yep. The Supreme Court would ignore the tragedies of the state's toleration of wealth and class discrimination. Wealth and class discrimination. They fought a war against the people of this nation with conscripted slaves and then said they created an all new freedom by unenslaving their slaves. They overthrew the country. Okay. They made sure they could take care of your personal security and your sovereignty. We got that for you. And that they could monitor all labor transactions. And they could tax you. And they could settle the score with wealth and class discrimination. Well, have they done it? That's communism. Is the way they sell communism what communism actually is as you experience it in real life right now? Because that's what it is. They said they did it 160 years ago. In no uncertain terms, we overthrew your nation to install communism. And of course, communism and democracy are the same thing. Okay. Maybe democracy in reality is not that. Maybe direct democracy is not what the ancient Greeks said. I'm open to that idea. Okay. Because they invert everything. So of course, then the worst system is democracy. And then of course you have the scientific materialists claiming that the people actually can't govern themselves. They can't express their own self-interest in some way that could be reflected through a legitimate government, verifiably legitimate. I think all of that is possible. I really do think it is. And I accept that if the Constitution with the Bill of Rights is where we need to go back to, fine, and we can work from there. But it has to go at least back that far. And it probably needs to go further back, but I am fine with it there, as I've said many times. All right? I'm trying to overthrow any constitution. The Constitution has already been overthrown. Steve Bannon says it on War Room, post-constitutional regime. Okay? It's not just me anymore. And Bannon is like, and I don't mean to say that I was ahead of Bannon. I certainly wasn't. That dude is like a legend. I call him my dad. I would have never been anywhere close to any of this without him, though he doesn't talk about this stuff on the show. He hints at it here and there. And sometimes I'll look up his little remarks about history and be like, oh, wow. Wonder what he's trying to say there. He's very clever. He is the best. I love him. As we shall see, other countries have confronted the problem of wealth discrimination as an aspect of their commitment to equality. It will eventually be incumbent on the Supreme Court to do the same. Okay? So they put the 14th Amendment in place. Other countries were doing the same thing. And so the Supreme Court had to begin recognizing in their decisions the full scope of what the 14th Amendment, the Reconstruction Amendments more broadly, actually mean. That is what Fletcher is arguing in no uncertain terms. Communism is the new law of the land. Now the courts have to enforce it. That is what he is saying. Two more of these. And I hope you guys aren't all bored of this because I love this stuff. Hold for processing just one more second. Okay, nobody seems to be freaking out. All right, good. Good. I want to be clear in these things because I don't want people to freak out. And some of this stuff is a little jarring, I think. So Fletcher said, the Civil War income tax lapsed in 1872, and when the direct tax against income returned to the national agenda in the 1890s, the times were different. Yes, you were beginning the Zionist mission at that point and began to the early stages of the Balfour Declaration and the Schofield Bible. This is what the regime was doing. This is how they did it, and they did it under the guise of Judaism. Now, you know, some people will say that's just Judaism, and to some extent, maybe that's right. Maybe they use that, but they're not all actually Jews. They're not mostly actually Jews, and plenty of non-Jews are involved. So I don't know. I mean, maybe it's unresolvable. I don't think that anybody needs to go there. I really don't. And there's an extent to which Jews have made many incredible contributions to society. So, you know, nobody's perfect. Individuals aren't perfect. I want to think about people as individuals. Okay, so the times are different. All right. The disputes took on the tones of class struggle. This time it was the Democrats who favored the tax as a measure of social justice. So the federal income tax was a social justice policy that was unconstitutionally enacted and enacted only on the basis of the Reconstruction Amendments, which were improperly ratified and a complete and total overthrow of the Constitution. This is your nation. Many of the wealthy who were affected by the modest 2% tax denounced the measure as socialist, because it is. Almost immediately after the tax's introduction, a challenge under the original Constitution, made its way to the Supreme Court, where 5 of the 9 justices were convinced that any form of income tax violated the prohibition against direct taxes not in proportion to the census. Progressive politics, the census might have to be done away with as well, because the census is a measure for taxing. And, I don't fault the census people for that. I just think that that was probably a compromise that should not have been made at the founding. They counted the story of Jesus Christ's birth, if I'm not mistaken, was about people needing to be counted so they could be taxed by this regime. Wow, it's this regime again. All the way back to then. Do you think that they just started coming up with new policies, new strategies? No, they didn't. It's all the same. It's all the same. Almost immediately after the taxes, okay, I went through that. We're 5 of the 9. Progressive politics, as well as the government's demand for revenue, generated a coalition that supported a constitutional amendment to reverse the decision of the Supreme Court. By 1913, the 16th Amendment found the necessary 3/4 vote for ratification, and the income tax became a basic tool of modern state finance. They forced the ratification of the 16th Amendment through, by the way. And I did an episode called Read My Lips, No Taxes. Go back to that if you want to hear that discussion. But they forced through this amendment, and they forced through the amendment to overturn the Supreme Court. Did they do that legally? Do you think they did that properly? No, they didn't. So the 16th Amendment, same as the 13th, 14th, and 15th, they overthrew the country to install a communist government to the extent it wasn't already installed, and it pretty much was. And not too long after that, they forced through the ratification of the 16th Amendment. And who would even deny them at that point? They know that they're prepared. They will absolutely go to war against the people of the country in order to be able to pass what they believe they need to operate as they choose in our land. It's what the regime does. The origin of the income tax. Hold on. Let me switch to another slide because this one's 2 slides. The origin of the income tax in the Civil War has largely symbolic meaning. It testifies to the government's beginning to conceive of itself as an aggressive agent charged not only with winning a total war against states in insurrection, but also with taking charge of the post-bellum constitutional order that would be based on different premises from the social order of freedom and fear of government. So your fear of government, of course, is irrational. Now you can trust the government. And your social order of freedom, well, that's just going to have to go in order for you to be able to trust your government. This is what they did. He's telling you. It's great that they tell you. It really is great that they tell you. In the second founding of the United States, 37 states constituted themselves as a single nation, quote, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Beautiful. The government would assume the task of supervising relationships in the commercial and private spheres to assay whether they were impermissible relationships of domination. Relationships morally equivalent not in actuality, just morally, which is a subjective viewpoint based on the law. Morally equivalent to involuntary servitude. The government was newly envisioned as a triadic structure powered by an activist, well-financed government. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court did not clearly get the message. Oh, and so his complaint, by the way, is that the Supreme Court did not want to go along with the overthrow of the Constitution. The justices who were there on lifetime appointments at that time would not go along with the Constitution at the speed required. So the Supreme Court had to be dealt with. It's communist overthrow of the nation. That's what it is. It's not anything else other than that. And we live in a communist state that is projected to us by the television and by newspapers. A false reality is projected to make us enjoy the communist state. The communist state can actually be removed. And we can probably, I think we can maintain the state. And I think that that's what this process is for. It just has to be recognized. It just has to be recognized and called out as such. You take the respect away from the regime's doctors and their lawyers and their law. Okay? That's it. And you don't even have to like actively oppose them. Just be like, he's a lawyer. When I grew up, people used to joke about lawyers all the time. Now, all we have running everything is lawyers. How's that possible? And by the way, the original 13th Amendment was to prevent people with titles of nobility from serving in any level of government. Who were those people? Well, nobles from Britain, one. Lawyers, doctors, those kinds of titles, esquires, as they were called at the time. Same thing. British bar, British common law, same thing. It's only the same thing all the time. Just break through the lie that we've been told. You can see it right there. Check every bit of this. Check it out. See, are you able to find some justification for what I'm saying? And if you are, then you might suspect that perhaps if all of the things can be justified in the same way and compose a picture of reality that is indeed plausible, and you can say that I'm wrong, but I believe that that view of reality is indeed plausible, and it is exceptionally well supported by the facts, whereas the view of reality that we see right now is not at all supportable by the facts. And you can see the communist infiltration in government and society. You can see the motivations and how it's moved along, no matter what they tell you it is. Okay. You can see the illegitimacy of the government and how it doesn't care at all about the people. It can't care about you. It's too busy supporting equality through the Reconstruction Amendments. And you better damn well agree unless you want another civil war. And so that is the threat, of course, civil war. And civil war will clearly be, because it's all the same, a war by the regime against the people with their conscripted slaves, which is why they have a slave trade at the southern border, perhaps. If you think that the picture on television makes more sense than that, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't know what to tell you. And I guess if you want to keep following around whoever bombs the next ice cream truck, let me know. Let me know how it all turns out. Oh, I found out Sean Ryan's not a good guy. Ah, man. Okay, so let me continue to one other thing. So I was, as I said, on Badlands this morning. We were covering the gay ritual where they pretend that Donald Trump rules the world again, as if that's how leaders of the world are determined. And someone in the Rumble chat on there, this dude, Bad Lucky 1776, man, I cannot thank this guy enough. You know, I don't know who he is. I've never interacted with him. But every now and then, someone just hits you with one of the things that like unlocks a bunch of other things. Okay. And so what I'm going to share with you is an image of the congressional record. I guess I could just say I'm sharing the congressional record with you. This is at congress.gov. Okay. So I don't think I could get access to a better version, a more authentic version of the congressional record, to the extent the congressional record matters, than this. Okay. And by the way, if you're getting rid of all of the bullshit, and we've had fake elections for a really long time, then the congressional record might be important so that we can view it as a historical document and know how these arguments went and use it as a guide of what not to do. But like, who cares what they passed? I don't care at all what illegitimate Congresses passed and what illegitimate presidents signed. I don't care at all. All of it is a nullity. Okay. Everyone should understand that. All of it, all of it, all of it. And when you act in accordance with that, doesn't mean you're out committing crimes. Doesn't make murder okay, right? You have an objective morality through God, through Jesus Christ. Good. You're not going to enact evil in the world. Cool. That's what you're supposed to do. And in fact, we probably wouldn't need a government if everybody just did that. So it's not like I'm suggesting that all law be torn down and that we engage in chaos. You can just be honest and do business honestly and treat other people as you would want to be treated. We could just have a government on that. Okay. And it's not a theocracy. It's just, we all agree to act the right way because society enforces and shames the evil in the world. Okay. So I don't care what Congress does. I don't care what Congress has ever done, except as a guide to avoid becoming a communist nation once again. So with that said, let me pause for a moment. I'm just going to check on the chat and everything. Okay. People are still on board. People are still on board. Very good to hear. Very good. Okay. So this is, maybe I'll enlarge this. Is that better? Maybe that's better. I think that's probably better for the people viewing, but it's not better for the people who might clip things. Really tough. Okay. I'm going to pop the link to this in the chat. And if I am smart and responsible, I will put the link to this in the show notes. And if I have failed to do that, please someone remind me in the Substack comments, and I will. And to comment on Substack, you have to be a paid subscriber on Substack. That is my normal platform. If this is the first time you're seeing me, then I'm your moderator.substack.com is where to find me. And also, for people who are sick of all the ops, go to the merch store, cancelcodetour.com. That is definitely in the show notes, and get the opt-out gear, because opt-out is the move. No more ops. No more ops. Okay? You realize it's an op. Figure out why the op is being run, what they want you to believe. You can find the truth from there. The details of a complete and total fiction are irrelevant. Okay? Any string of random words that you search online will bring you to various new revelations. Some of them might be really interesting. It doesn't mean that the op matters. Okay? Figure out the purpose and move on. We cannot waste our time on such trivialities as who the Cybertruck bombers' grandmother's former boss's grandson scored on his math test. Cannot do it. It's absolutely pointless. Okay. So here we have a debate on the floor of Congress. The 14th Amendment, equal protection law or tool of usurpation. June 13th, 1967. As I've said repeatedly, and by the way, this is section or page 15641. In the PDF, it's page 105 if you want to look at this on your own. Okay. And as I said, the link should be available. I hope it's available. It will be made available if I mess up. So, 1967, not that long ago, the civil rights era. What was that all about, huh? What was that all about? Was it about protecting the 14th Amendment? What was it about? What was it about? There's no way the Civil Rights Act actually enhanced or advanced civil rights. Not possible. Okay. And the regime's government was already fully in control during the time of Jim Crow and urban segregation. And of course, the KKK's theirs. We don't have to pretend about these things. We cannot pretend about these things. Okay. These are the most important facts about, well, in my opinion, I'm not trying to big up myself. Okay. I'm trying to say, I believe we have to understand these things about the country in order to understand what we're dealing with. And unless we understand what we're dealing with, we cannot defeat it and we cannot govern for ourselves. Okay. We cannot govern in the false reality after we've taken over. Oh, look, we took over. Let's just govern in the false reality and pretend all their laws are valid. The system already owns us. It is entirely possible that the machine already runs everything. And people don't think that's possible. It is entirely possible. Let's continue. Okay, so I'm going to skip to the middle of this page where it says, I think this is House Congressional Resolution 208, H-Con-Res. I think it's House Congressional Resolution. So they are debating a resolution to declare the illegitimacy of the 14th Amendment. Maybe it meant House concurrent resolution. Okay, good. A concurrent resolution to expose the unconstitutionality of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution of the United States, to interpose the sovereignty of the state of Louisiana against the execution of said amendment in this state, to memorialize the Congress of the United States to repeal its joint resolution of July 28, 1868, declaring that said amendment had been ratified, and to provide for the distribution of certified copies of this resolution. How about that? Repeal the joint resolution of July 28, 1868, that the amendment had been ratified. Why? Because it was not properly ratified, and it does not constitute the law of the land. Post-constitutional order. Okay? That's what Bannon means. He knows. It occurs to me, having spent a few weeks in the month of November driving through the Deep South, which I love. Alabama, awesome. Southern Georgia, I went to Thomasville, beautiful town. Charleston, South Carolina, love it. Myrtle Beach was fun, but Myrtle Beach is whatever. I'm sure the people there have a very nice lifestyle because the weather's nice and I'm sure the community is lovely. I'm not saying anything about that, but I was there in the Strip and hotels. That's not a place that I would choose to live, although I'm sure there are nice places around. Driving through the South is a wonderful thing. But one thing you will notice is that parts of it are more run down. I have to wonder if they're not receiving federal funding. I mean, they might just well be totally and completely corrupt, but I have to wonder if there's something with the federal funding based on their failure to go along with this. And perhaps the whole red state part of the controlled opposition and the way they talk about the South, perhaps what they're describing about the South is their unwillingness to go along with this sort of bullshit. To them, this is racist to not go along with communism, because what they are doing is protecting equality, as George P. Fletcher makes quite clear. And then it was all about abolishing slavery. And of course, we all know that's for the minorities and not for the whites. But of course, it wasn't the whites nor the minorities who did any of this. It was the regime. It's always the regime. Whereas the purported 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution was never lawfully adopted in accordance with the requirements of the United States Constitution, because 11 states of the Union were deprived of their equal suffrage in the Senate in violation of Article 5, when 11 southern states, including Louisiana, were excluded from deliberation and decision in the adoption of the joint resolution proposing said 14th Amendment. Said resolution was not presented to the President of the United States in order that the same should take effect, as required by Article 1, Section 7. Now, this is a conspiracy theory. I've not looked into this at all. What I just read makes it sound to me like maybe they had to dispose of Abraham Lincoln for a reason. And then that would make me reconsider some of the ways I have viewed Abraham Lincoln and his, Fletcher makes a king of Abraham Lincoln in that book, saying that Abraham Lincoln completed all these things. But man, oh man, the ratification of these amendments, if he wasn't going along with that, that's a good reason to assassinate and replace him, is it not? The proposed amendment was not ratified by 3/4 of the states, but to the country, 15 states of the then 37 states of the Union rejected the proposed 14th Amendment between the dates of its submission to the states by the Secretary of State on June 16th, 1866, and March 24th, 1868, thereby nullifying said resolution and making it impossible for ratification by the constitutionally required 3/4 of such states. Said southern states, which were denied of their equal suffrage in the Senate, have been recognized by proclamations of the President of the United States to have duly constituted governments with all the powers which belong to the free states of the Union, and the legislatures of 7 of said southern states had ratified the 13th Amendment, which would have failed of ratification but for the ratification of said 7 southern states. Why don't the history books teach us this? Why don't the colleges teach us this? I wonder, why does our culture make sure that no one ever questions the official narrative about the Civil War to the same extent that they make sure no one ever questions the central narrative about World War II? What could it be? What could it be? Whereas the Reconstruction Acts of Congress unlawfully overthrew their existing governments, removed by their lawfully constituted legislatures by military force, and replaced them with rump legislatures, which carried out military orders and pretended to ratify the 14th Amendment. What? Wow. That's some serious stuff right there. That would suggest that they overthrew the country by force to institute communism. And they did. And they propped up illegitimate governments all over the country. Where is the infiltration? Here is the infiltration. What is the war? This is the war. It's got nothing to do with race. They bring up the race bullshit so that no one can question it. This is the congressional record. George P. Fletcher is a regime communist and Zionist. His words, these words, same story. Whereas in spite of the fact that the Secretary of State in his first proclamation on July 20th, 1866, I think that says 1866. Looks like it might be an 8. So I hope I'm right about that. Expressed doubt as to whether 3/4 of the required states had ratified the 14th Amendment, Congress nevertheless adopted a resolution on July 28th, 1868. Oh, yeah, they're both 8s. Apologies. So this is the same period. That period, not here in 1967. It's being questioned in 1967. This is a retelling from 1967, read into the congressional record. 100 years later, it's in the congressional record. Man. Unlawfully declaring that 3/4 of the states had ratified the 14th Amendment and directed the Secretary of State to so proclaim. Said joint resolution of Congress and the resulting proclamation of the Secretary of State included the purported ratifications of the military-enforced rump legislatures of 10 southern states, whose lawful legislatures had previously rejected said 14th Amendment. So the real legislatures rejected it, and the new installed legislatures by military approved this conversion, this overthrow and inversion, better said, of our Constitution. And also included purported ratifications by the legislatures of the states of Ohio and New Jersey, although they had withdrawn their legislative ratifications several months previously, all of which proves absolutely that said 14th Amendment was not adopted in accordance with the mandatory constitutional requirements set forth in Article 5 of the Constitution, and therefore the Constitution itself strikes with nullity, the purported 14th Amendment. The proposal is literally in violation of the Constitution. The ratification of the 14th Amendment is itself in violation with the clear terms of the Constitution. It was improperly ratified. It is a nullity. It has to be properly done according to the Constitution to be constitutional. And most of the society we live in is based on this usurpation of the United States in full by the global communist regime. It is nothing other than that. It is only that. They are saying it in clear terms. It was not properly ratified. Everything that flows from that is void. Everything. All of it. All of it. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the legislature of Louisiana, the House of Representatives, and the Senate concurring, that the legislature go on record as exposing the unconstitutionality of the 14th Amendment and interposes the sovereignty of the state of Louisiana against the execution of said 14th Amendment against the state of Louisiana and its people. And of course, the Civil Rights Act is based on all they were doing was enforcing the 14th Amendment. And so when states didn't want to go along with the Civil Rights Act, which was a new level of usurpation, I mean, come on, let's be honest. The government registers us with numbers and will send you to prison if you don't want the number. Right? What do you think that is? Did the Civil Rights Act do what we thought it was going to do? Oh, it saved black people again. Turns out we didn't actually save them the first time because there were still racists. Oh, really? Were they racists in control? Who was in control? This same global regime. This is what the states' rights debate is about, by the way. It's incredible stuff. It really is. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the legislature of Louisiana, the House of Representatives, and the Senate concurring, that the legislature go on record as, did I just do this one? Sorry. As exposing the unconstitutionality. Yes, I did. Sorry. That the legislature of Louisiana, this is number 2, opposes the use of the invalid 14th Amendment by the federal courts to impose further unlawful edicts and hardships on its people. And George P. Fletcher has a long section in our secret constitution talking about how the court decisions based on the 14th Amendment created all this court precedent, which is the basis for all of the communist laws we have. The size of our government is directly related to this. The corruption in our government is directly related to this. The fake elections, all of it directly related to this. Everything is built on these Reconstruction Amendments. Number 3, that the Congress of the United States be memorialized by this legislature to repeal its unlawful joint resolution of July 28, 1868, declaring that the 3/4 of the states had ratified the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution. That the legislatures of other states of the Union be memorialized to give serious study and consideration to take similar action against the validity of the 14th Amendment and to uphold and support the Constitution of the United States, which strikes said 14th Amendment with nullity, means done from the start, never existed. That copies of this resolution, duly certified, together with a copy of the treatise on the unconstitutionality of the 14th Amendment by Judge L.H. Perez be forwarded to the governors and secretaries of state of each state in the Union, and to the secretaries of the United States Senate and House of Congress, and to the Louisiana congressional delegation, a copy hereof to be published in the congressional record. Okay? So then they begin to debate it. And here's the first part of the debate. I'm just going to read 1, 2, 3, and then we'll move forward. And I actually haven't even gotten all the way to the end of this. I should have skipped ahead. I hope, and I was led to believe, maybe, if I recall correctly, that there was actually a vote on this. The purported 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution is and should be held to be ineffective, invalid, null and void, and unconstitutional for the following reasons. The joint resolution proposing said amendment was not submitted to or adopted by a constitutional Congress. Article 1, Section 3, and Article 5 of the Constitution. See Article 1. No. Sorry. Moving on. 2, the joint resolution was not submitted to the president for his approval. Article 1, Section 7. Very clear. The proposed 14th Amendment was rejected by more than 1/4 of all the states then in the Union, and it was never ratified by 3/4 of all the states in the Union. See Article 5. Nothing could be clearer than that. All of it is totally null and void. It is totally illegitimate. All of it, all of it, all of it. Okay? So figuring out who the Unabomber's high school girlfriend was is not advancing the cause of this. This is the real cause. This and the banks. It's a war against the banks. We don't need to wake up the normies. Okay? We don't need to figure out the deepest, darkest secrets of every next salacious story. I think that John Harold and Zach Payne might have done an episode of Baseless Conspiracies talking about this. I've not looked into this myself. Okay, so forgive me. It is just an example, and it can just be, it's any example. I'm using this as an example. There are a large number of people who believe that John Benet Ramsey's whole situation, that killing, was not only falsely portrayed to the public, but there was never a John Benet Ramsey. Okay? And if there was never a John Benet Ramsey, then all of the people obsessed with that, all the headlines on the tabloids in the grocery store, all of that was for absolutely nothing. Okay? Now, you might be able to figure out who the real criminals were, and it might unlock other means of exploration. But again, any gathering of words typed into a search engine, a few steps from that will be something interesting. That's just how the world works. It is a total and complete waste of time to chase down these stories. They're not real. That's what's important about them. And you don't need to find all the details to know they're not real. You just need to be smart. Your brain needs to work. Oh, hey, I can see that a former CIA podcast host that got really big all of a sudden out of nowhere is exposing a whistleblower about Chinese alien drones. That's an op. That can only be an op. That's the point of the op. If the Cybertruck means anything at all, it is only that Elon and Trump exposed that op so that it could never take hold, so that the Chinese alien drone thing could never take hold. And again, I'm not saying that there are no interesting details. Holy moly, I didn't expect to see this. Sorry, I was looking back at my page here. This here, right here says, right after that, it says, the state of Israel is a sovereign nation. The state of Israel is a member of the United Nations, a full-fledged member of the family of nations. Though the integrity of her borders were guaranteed by the major powers 3 times in 20 years. What? The major powers did all those things? They protected Israel's borders 3 times in 20 years? All those wars were the major powers protecting Israel's borders? The state of Israel was obliged to go to war to put a stop to the violation of her boundary lines. It is therefore basic to any plan for the permanent peace in the Middle East that the sovereignty of the state of Israel be recognized by her neighbors. This fact cannot be questioned. This truth is and should not be negotiable because its import was underlined by the events of the past 10 days. What? I'm definitely going to have to get into this now. Man, oh man. The foundation for a permanent peace in the Middle East must be the absolute and unqualified recognition by the Arab states of the right of the state of Israel to exist as a sovereign state among other sovereign states. When this foundation is laid, then Israel and her Arab neighbors can, through direct negotiations, begin to build the structure leading to permanent peace. It is, I think, probably no surprise whatsoever that that was placed in the congressional record directly after the challenge to the 14th Amendment. There's no way that's a coincidence. Man, oh man. That's mind-blowing as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so let me see if the machine will answer this for me. And hopefully we will wrap up soon after this, because otherwise, when they go longer than 2.5 hours, I have a hell of a time uploading the podcast streams to Players Beyond Substack. Substack's fantastic, by the way. And who knows, it could be a rug. It's fine. It's all good. I'm asking the machine, did the U.S. House of Representatives pass House Concurrent Resolution 208 in June 1967? I think I have that right. Let me scroll back up to make sure. Yes, I do. Let's see what the machine says. Did not pass the House Concurrent Resolution 208, which was introduced to challenge the constitutionality of the 14th Amendment. This resolution was primarily a response from the Louisiana legislature, urging Congress to declare the 14th Amendment unconstitutional and to repeal its ratification. The resolution was mentioned in the congressional record, but there is no indication that it progressed to a vote or was adopted by the House during that time. So they don't really know. The resolution's focus on the legality of the 14th Amendment and its implications reflects a historical context of resistance from certain states regarding federal constitutional amendments, particularly during the civil rights era. How about that? How about that? They say it's all to protect racism or to solve racism. They're going to protect blacks and other minorities. Have they done that? At any point, have they protected blacks and minorities? I would contend that no, they have not. They may have enhanced their welfare state on the backs of blacks and minorities, but to the extent that the welfare state is soul destroying, then they have done the worst possible thing to blacks and minorities. And of course, they are still enslaving blacks and minorities at their regime corporations all across the country, who are imported here through a global slave trade that has never stopped here or anywhere else. Okay. I don't know. I think that's probably going to have to do it for today. Okay. Yeah, that we're going to wrap it up there today. Like I said, we're going to talk about this stuff all year long. All right. I want to get all the way to the bottom. And I think everybody else wants to get all the way to the bottom. I don't think it is good to just have an addiction to the soap opera on television. These are gossip stories. Okay. They're gossiping. When you hear one congressman talking about another congressman, you're watching people gossip. It's soap opera. Okay. Soap opera. The intent is to make it a soap opera so that even if you feel better and feel like your country is heading in a good direction, the uniparty still rules and you still believe that what is happening on the television is real. The only way to get out is to realize that it's not real. People are like, why? You call everything fake and gay. Well, first of all, I call some things fake. I call some things gay. I call some things retarded. They all have different meanings. I call things fake because they're fake. And the way to defeat these things and this regime who controls us through media, manipulation of currency, and ultimately violence is to recognize that it's fake. All the abstract power is nothing. You don't have to respect it at all. You are not constitutionally required by it to respect it. You are not morally required to respect it. In fact, you are morally required to not respect it. I think we'll leave it there. Thank you all very much for tuning in. I'll be on Hindsight 2020 tonight. Obviously, today's January 6th, so we're going to go through that, among other things, right? It's not all going to be focused on January 6th. And yeah, with that, I will be back tomorrow at the same reasonable time on the Same Reasonable Podcast Network. Oh, gosh. Hold on one second. I want to make sure that nobody Rumble ranted. I hate when I miss them. I feel so bad. And then I tell myself I'm going to remember tomorrow, and I don't remember tomorrow. Polymath Anon, FYI, subscriptions expire after time, and Rumble doesn't let you know when that happens. I gave away subs and didn't notice mine was over. LOL. Got you. So that he's explaining why he gifted all these subscriptions and then subscribed himself. Snowcat Operator gifted another 5. You're the man. Thank you very much. Dan, I already got these. Man, terrible. Rumble something's wrong with the chat feed. Or maybe it's me. I'll be back tomorrow at the same reasonable time on the Same Reasonable Podcast Network. I don't have a network. Masks and lockdowns don't work. They lied to you about a pandemic. And Joe Biden was obviously never president. Got to find the outro.
Well, what?
You know who I am, don't you?
Well, you ain't Fiona Apple, and if you ain't Fiona Apple, I don't give a rat's ass.
Ah!
And what's wrong with being an angry prophet denouncing the hypocrisies of our times? What do you think, Max?
Do you want to be an angry prophet denouncing the hypocrisies of our times?
Yeah, I think I'd like to be an angry prophet denouncing the hypocrisies of our times.
It's not true. It's more true than I would perhaps prefer.
And I will not let you down.
We do a little trolling. It's called We Do a Little Trolling.
What must be what?
In my mind, that's the end game.
If you're listening for free and would like to support the show, the best way to do that is by signing up for a paid subscription at imyourmoderator.substack.com. You can find the info stream over on Telegram at t.me/veryreasonable. The merch site is cancelcouture.com. And for all my other links, you can visit linktree.com/imyourmoderator. And I'll see you soon. Down on the range.